Several days, we've been focusing on the fact that women in the United States are more likely to die from pregnancy-related complications than in nearly any other developed country in the world.
For each mom who dies, there are 100 women who experience potentially deadly complications, which is why choosing where to give birth is important.
You need to ask your hospital if they have specific protocols in place to save your life if you have a complication during labor. One local mother I talked with is lucky her hospital did.
She is 3 weeks old tomorrow.
When Dani Hopkins delivered her first child, it was easier than she'd imagined. 6 hours after her first contraction at home, daughter Taylor was in her arms at the hospital.
So I was like, ah! And I grabbed her and pulled her onto my chest and she was here. And it went really smoothly.
It was pretty special.
It was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
I was just sobbing and she was on my chest and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, she's finally here. And she looked like an alien.
Dani and husband Bobby were basking in an entirely new level of joy. And you just had the happiest moment of your lives, and then it changed like that. Roughly 20 minutes into their time as a new family, the calm pierced by shouting from the doctor.
She's bleeding out. And almost immediately, there were I don't know, 8 to 10 people in there. The doctor's yelling all these acronyms I need a this, and a this, and people are running in and out of the room yelling things back at him, and he's yelling things at them, and I just see sponges and sponges of blood and coming out.
So it was just shooting out.
But I just remember thinking, if I get too excited, my blood will pump faster and come out of me faster. So I was like, I just have to stay calm.
As the minutes ticked by, Dani knew she was falling deeper into trouble.
I just remember looking down there and seeing him stitch, and then he would release the clamps and say, that wasn't it, I can't find the source of the bleed. She's still bleeding.
He had just a needle and he kept just re-threading it over and over.
And it just was Groundhog Day. That went over and over and over.
For about an hour and a half, Dani's doctor frantically tried to find the source of the hemorrhage.
I remember thinking, oh, this is how I'm gonna go. And I just was so calm. And I just remember thinking how sad I was. That I would, get to see her grow up and that he might have to be alone.
Blood loss during delivery can happen very rapidly, and it can be catastrophic.
Dr. Lacey Marks is with Multicare Rockwood in Spokane. She is not Dani's doctor, but Dani's story is a good example of why expectant parents should always make certain their hospital has a protocol in case of hemorrhage, which is the leading cause of pregnancy-related death.
A lot of the causes of maternal death in this nation are due to hemorrhage, despite the fact that we have tons of medication. We have a blood bank.
Dr. Mark's hospital at Multicare Deaconess does have protocols in place in case a woman hemorrhages, but don't assume that's the case at all hospitals.
I worked at another hospital in the past where I had a woman who was hemorrhaging, and I was new to that hospital, and I said, okay, call the blood bank and activate the massive transfusion protocol. And the anesthesiologist said to me, what's that? And I was like, oh, okay. That came as a shock to me. That hospital now has a protocol.
Fortunately, Dani's hospital did have a protocol to deal with her blood loss, but it had never occurred to her to ask before she needed it.
No,
we didn't check that.
No. I literally never once thought that I could lose a lot of blood. No.
Part of a hospital's hemorrhage protocol should also include measuring a patient's blood loss.
It used to be that the doc would look around and say, looks like a liter. Now we have protocols to actually collect all of the blood lost and quantify and weigh it, and we'll know exactly how much.
They did measure your blood.
Yes, I was lucky to be in the right place because I didn't know to ask these questions. So I think that, number one, it's great that this is being brought up and that people know that it's a thing that can happen, hemorrhaging.
In the end, Dani lost blood for close to 2 hours. More than 100 internal stitches finally stopped her bleeding.
It was all internal. And so there's just a bunch of lacerations internally, and for no rhyme or reason. No, they said that the only thing that their explanation is that everyone's anatomy is different, and just maybe the way she came out.
Recovery is slow, painful, and a bit emotional too.
He has done everything. Like, he changes her diaper, he picks her up and brings her to me because I just have a hard time getting up and around. And so it's been frustrating as a new mom to not be able to do anything.
Fortunately, the antidote to her frustration is never far away, coming in the form of this 7-pound superpower of cute.
Just her face is like, fixes everything. And I love it so much. I just feel so happy that I get to be here to see everything.
It's so interesting because you assume at a hospital in the U.S. that you don't have to necessarily worry about this type of thing.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing this story. The mortality rates have been increasing over the past several years. And part of the thing is hospitals get so focused, and so do parents, on the baby, right? That mom kind of takes a back seat sometimes.
Right.
So, and that's another point. While Dani and Bobby are focused on baby Taylor, they need to be hyper aware of Dani's health too. 33% of maternal deaths happen after delivery. That is why the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists is now recommending new guidelines in the U.S. to cut in half the time before mom's first postpartum checkup from the now standard 6 weeks, and they want to cut that down to 3 weeks.
So Washington and Montana have also created maternal mortality review boards to look into ways to improve the statistics of maternal deaths and complications. Idaho has not created such a board.
Coming up in our next half hour of Crim 2 News, I'll introduce you to another local mother who learned advocating for yourself at the hospital could save your life.
Good information there.